The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
The following program is closed captioned for the thinking impaired.
By tomorrow, I will rule the world!
You think he's gone? He's not gone. That's the whole point. He's never gone!
Is this some radical new therapy?
You see?
Well, I must have not been paying attention when you were just talking to me.
You know that disclaimer at the beginning about the thinking impaired was a lot funnier when we were just doing radio. Now that we're doing video, it doesn't seem as funny. But when I was just doing radio, that made sense, right? Because obviously you can't be closed captioned, it's just radio. One of my biggest flaws, I was saying this on Facebook the other day, is once I find something funny, it's funny forever. Like for me, once I find something really funny, all my friends within 10 minutes are going to get sick of me because I never find it not funny once I find it funny. Like they're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Everyone on my Facebook page is just so sick of me doing that. But I found it just as funny the 4,000th time as I found it the first time.
What's that one from?
When Donald Trump said the migrants are eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Oh. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And then some guy on YouTube took it and put it to a song. He turned it into a song.
Oh, wow.
So it just echoed in my head every day. And so I just kept posting it on Facebook. Boy, did we have a show for you guys today.
If I could get you back on camera, I'd be doing a great job. There we go.
All right.
That's, we're real professional here, folks. Don't mind us.
I actually still think of this as a radio show, even though I know people can see what we're doing. And you see how fat I am. You know, I want to go back to when I looked horrible, and people told me I looked horrible every day, but I felt good.
Yeah.
Because now everybody tells me how good I look because I've gained 40 pounds, but I feel like shit all the time. So I'd rather go back to feeling good and having people tell me I look bad.
Right.
All right, should we get this show on the road?
Well, we can.
Boy, do we have a show today. Although usually when I think it's going to be a great show, it ends up sucking. So you never know.
Who knows?
Bubba Buzz coming up. All right, let's get this show on the road. Hi, how you guys doing? My name's Tom Duggan with the Paying Attention Podcast. Hi, atop Two Guys Smoke Shop at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. Next week, before I forget, because I always forget to do a preview. Next week, we've got my intern is coming in. Carlotta is coming in, and she has her own podcast. And so I kind of want to introduce you guys to her podcast because it's actually really good. And we want to talk to her. She is a Dominican American. She lives in Lawrence. She's the last person, if you're a Democrat who thinks identity politics all the time, she's the last person in the world you would think would get along so great with a guy like me who's a right-wing lunatic. But we get along great. And she does great work, and I really enjoy her podcast, so I'm going to have her come on here and do that. And then the following week, we're going to have Jim Sarcione, who's running for mayor of Methuen in the special mayoral election. And I would have had DJ Beauregard come on, but ever since he's achieved a new level of power, he's too good for me now. And he doesn't return my phone calls and doesn't return my text messages. And that's mostly because his puppet master, Tina Conway, won't allow him to do that. So you get Sharon Paul and Tina Conway still 30 years later, still running the city of Methuen, only they're just using their surrogates to do it. And it's unfortunate because I actually like DJ, and I told him when he was 16 working for Billy Manzi that I was looking forward someday to watching you get sworn in as mayor. And, you know, Confucius says, be careful what you ask for, because now that it's here, a little disappointed. But we're going to get into that another day. We're going to have Jim Sarcione here in 2 weeks. Next week, we're going to have Carlotta. Let's thank our sponsors, McLennan Real Estate, Century 21, the Zanny Pesci Law Office, Marston & Son Construction, EIS, Investigation and Gun Training, the Bonfire Wellness Center in North Andover, Tomo and Shaken Seafood, Clear Path for Veterans New England, AFC Urgent Care, Pleasant Valley Landscaping Contractors, Patrick's Eatery, which is actually Better Burger Bar and Harrison's Roast Beef now.
Good job.
Thank you. I'm here all week. Tip your waitress. Prime Insurance, the Doug Mercurio Law Office. This list gets longer and longer and longer. And you know what? I'm not complaining at all. 11 Restaurant at 226 Essex Street in Lawrence. Chris's Barbershop, which is right above Sevmar in Salem, New Hampshire on Main Street, which is where I'm going to get my hair cut. I only have 3, but I still have to get them cut. So I'm going to be heading over there right after the show. Enterprise Bank. I want to say hi to all my girls at Enterprise Bank and Jesus. Hi, Jesus. But really, all my girls, I like them a lot more. Sorry, Jesus, you're a good guy, but I just kind of like them better. W3ON. Peralt Chiropractic, which starts this week in Methuen. They were an advertiser with us back in 2009, and they're back. And the son David is now running Peralt Chiropractic in Methuen, and so they're on board not just with an ad in the Valley Patriot, which is out today, but also on the show. And A&J Goodwin Plumbing. And a free shout out to JG's Ice Cream. We love the Jafrida brothers. And I met his daughter, was here last week with Diana DeZoglio. His daughter, Rich Jafrida's daughter, is one of Diana DeZoglio's aides at the state auditor's office. So it's a very, very small world. All right, listen, this is good. This is the show. People kept texting me all day on Election Day saying, what do you think's going to happen? And it was really impossible because we were lied to by the pollsters again. We were lied to by the mainstream media again. They purposely painted this like it was going to be a close 1% race where we were going to be waiting for a week and a half for the results because they were going to be counting.
What happens if you're not paying attention?
Like, why make 5 phone calls when you can make 1?
Huh? What?
That's an old drop.
I don't know where that came from. We have to start doing some of those drops, though, right?
So.
Just not in the middle of the show.
My apologies.
That's all good. It happens, right? Listen, I did live radio for so long. I've had so many crazy things happen while I was live on the air. Nothing shakes me anymore. Nothing. There was actually a guy got shot outside my radio studio, not to digress. But when I was at CAP, there was a guy who robbed a bank. The cops shot at him. They chased him upside the fire escape right outside my window while I was on the air. And I took my phone, on my camera, my phone, and took a picture of the cops after. So they shot him right in front of me. And I pulled out my phone. By the time I got it open and snapped the picture, the cop was doing CPR on the guy with blood everywhere. Like, while I was live on the air, and I never missed a beat. Like, as it was going on, I was describing what was happening, picked up my phone and took the picture and continued to go. So trust me when I tell you, nothing shakes me at all after doing this for 30-something years. But what I was saying is that the mainstream media lied to you, and they lied to you on purpose. They didn't get it wrong. They didn't make a mistake. Don't let them fool you. Don't let them fool you about how they fooled you. They lied to you. They didn't make a mistake. They didn't screw up. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were trying to scare Democrat voters and specifically certain demographics in this country to think that Kamala Harris had a shot. They knew she didn't have a shot because they knew the internal numbers that they weren't releasing to us. But they wanted you to think she had a shot because that's a good way to change the election results. That's a good way to interfere with the election. Where have we heard that phrase before? Election interference. We're going to have to revisit that on another show. But that's what they did. And they told you that Kamala Harris was within a point in certain states that Trump clobbered her by 15%. And they did that hoping that if Democrat voters or traditional Democrat voters thought that it was really close, they would come out and vote. After all, there are a lot of Republicans in Massachusetts that don't vote. You know why they don't vote? Because Republicans have no shot. But if they thought that the Republican had a shot, more Republicans would come out, right? That's the game that the pollsters and the media was playing right before the election. They were trying to make you think that your candidate on the Democrat side had a shot, hoping that that would motivate traditional Democrat voters to come out and give her a shot. And so before we even start today about all the other lies that were told during this election, which we're going to get to, really a pox on what there was a guy on CNN, and I'm sorry I can't remember his name. He's the only conservative they have on their panels, who said that what we really need to do is change the way the information, what did he call it? I just had it and I lost it. The information industrial complex The political media information industrial complex is what I think he called it. Because they lied to you every day. CNN came in every single day. MSNBC came on every single day. ABC, NBC, and CBS came on TV every single day and told you a new narrative that was a lie. One day it was a comedian made a joke about Puerto Rico. That's going to move the needle. That's going to push Kamala Harris over the edge. Donald Trump said something mean about this group, and that's going to push it over the edge. And every day, it was a new narrative that they used to try to promote, to try and make you think Kamala Harris had a shot. And then when you actually look at the numbers, you realize she never had a shot. Does that say 10 minutes left?
No.
Oh, okay.
Just been going for 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Scared me for a minute. It's like, wow,
okay.
I didn't think I was talking that long.
No. You're okay.
And so the mainstream media were not reporting news. What the mainstream media was doing was campaigning on the air. That's election interference. I don't care how you slice it. That's election interference. When you come on and you purposely tailor a story to make one candidate look bad and another candidate look good, that's election interference. And these are the people that cried about election interference for the last 4 years, claiming Donald Trump and people who support Donald Trump were engaging in election interference. Right? Donald Trump thought that the last election was stolen from him, so he went looking for votes that he thought were gone, that were missing, that were stolen. And Democrats said, that's election interference. He's trying to change the election results. No, he was looking for ballots that he believed were stolen. We can debate whether they were stolen. That's a debate we can have. He may or may not have been wrong about that, but you can't call that election interference, especially when in the next breath, when you lose the next election, we look back and we see that you were engaged in election interference. Democrats are now in a panic because they're losing their power. Power they see is slipping through their hand, and they are devastated. They are devastated, and it's glorious. It's glorious only because they were so friggin' arrogant when they were in power. And if they were a little bit more humble, and they treated their fellow man a little bit better, who didn't believe in the things they believed in, then I don't think most conservatives would be celebrating the pain of the Democrats today. But because they went so far over the edge, people like me find it delicious. And I do find it delicious. I spent almost all day yesterday working on the November edition of the Valley Patriot, but every time I took a break, I went to Twitter or TikTok or Snapchat to watch a Democrat cry. And it was wonderful. And I felt bad. I felt like this makes me a bad person, that I'm taking joy in someone else's emotional pain. And then I realized, no, that doesn't make me a bad person, because for the last 4 years, all they did was shit on people who didn't believe what they believed. They called us Hitler. They called us racist. They called us homophobes. They called us transphobic, homophobic, every phobic you can think of. They demonized people who didn't believe. They couldn't just say, that's someone with a different opinion. We had to be bad people because their beliefs are that they're a good person because of their politics. Maura Healey today, there's a clip making the rounds on Twitter. I guess she was on MSNBC saying that when Donald Trump takes office, Massachusetts is not going to assist, law enforcement in Massachusetts is not going to assist in the deportation of criminal illegal aliens. Really? You know what this tells me, and you know what it tells you? That the Democrats in power, who are starting to lose their power, have learned absolutely nothing from what happened on Tuesday. They have learned absolutely nothing from what happened on Tuesday. And Maura Healey, of all people, should be very, very mindful of what happened in Massachusetts on Tuesday. Let's take a look at some of these numbers, and we're going to go into some of the other stuff that went on. What was the first one that I sent you? Was it North Andover? All right, I want to be able to see what you see. Crap, I didn't save them, did I? Oh, I did. Hold on. Just give me 1 second. Got to figure out where I put it. There we go. All right, so you got North Andover first. Mm-hmm. Sorry, this should have been ready.
That's all right.
I'm never as prepared.
I can read it for you.
All right, so let's pull up the North Andover. So let's look at what some of the things that happened in Massachusetts on Tuesday. I live in North Andover. North Andover used to be, when I moved into North Andover in the year 2000, 24 years ago, North Andover was 70% Republican. Over the last 24 years, North Andover has leaned very hard to the left. Very hard to the left. We went from a right-wing town moderator in Charlie Salisbury, who was there for, I think, 30 years, to a left-wing lunatic and a friend of mine, Mark DeSalvo, who was an operative for the Democrat Party at the national level and the state level and the local level. I think we have one Republican on the Board of Selectmen in North Andover. North Andover has gone so far to the left, they're almost Lawrence. And you can tell by all the monstrous housing projects that they're building all over the town. Here's what happened, though, in the election. Now, Hillary Clinton won overwhelmingly over Donald Trump. Joe Biden won overwhelmingly over Donald Trump. But in North Andover on Tuesday, Harris gets 9,718 votes. Trump gets 6,446. It's about 3,000 votes. It's about average, but look at that number underneath. That number underneath is Elizabeth Warren, who was on the ballot for Senate, versus Republican John Deaton. John Deaton far outpaced Donald Trump, almost by 1,000 votes. I think it's 990 or something in that 990, 991, whatever it is. And what that tells me is that there are a lot of conservatives in North Andover who just don't like Donald Trump, but are certainly open to the Republican message. That's devastating for people like Elizabeth Warren and Maura Healey, who went on TV, national TV, and said she's not going to cooperate with the federal government deporting criminal illegal aliens. I thought no one was above the law, not even Donald Trump. Do you remember the last 4 years? Remember? They kept saying no one's above the law, not even Donald Trump, like every single day for the last 4 years while they prosecuted Donald Trump because he didn't put a comma in the right place on some document. Remember that? And now they're coming out and openly saying they will defy the law. They're openly saying that they are above the law. And listen, this is why they lost on Tuesday. The American people are sick and tired. The people in the middle are sick and tired of elected officials and politicians coming up and telling you that the narrative is this when they're in control, but the narrative is that when they're not in control. That's why the American people got pissed off on Tuesday and overwhelmingly rejected the Democrat Party in the House, in the Senate, and for president, and for governors and for state legislatures all over the country. It was a red wave like this country has not seen since, I think, Reagan. And yet all day today, all day yesterday, all day, on MSNBC and CNN and ABC and CBS and the rest, they're calling you racist for not accepting their message. They're calling you sexist for not approving their message, for not approving their candidate, which shows they've learned nothing. Let's take a look at, what's the next one, Methuen? Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at Methuen.
All right.
This is pretty interesting, too. Here's Methuen.
Methuen's results.
In Methuen, and I should have done this for North Andover, but I didn't have time. There was just so much to get to, right? In Methuen,
bringing it up
on Tuesday,
there it is.
There was a 361 vote difference between Trump and Harris. Harris, 12,160. Trump, 11,799. Now, Nick DeZoglio, please don't call me and say, those are the unofficial numbers. It's not exact. It's not perfect. We know that, okay? We all know that there are going to be other votes come in, but this is what we have right now. 361 votes between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. But in 2020, wow, look at those numbers at the bottom. Just 4 years ago, the rich white dude who represented the Democrat Party that constantly attacks rich white dudes, got 14,013 votes in Methuen. Trump got 10,945 for a difference of 3,068 votes. Wow. Wow. That says an awful lot in Methuen, doesn't it? So even in very deep blue Massachusetts, in very deep blue communities, yes, Harris won, But she didn't win by the margin that Hillary Clinton won, and she didn't win by the margin Joe Biden won, which means the shift in this country, even in blue communities, even in blue states, is shifting to the right. And the governor, Maura Healey, is on MSNBC saying we are above the law. We are not going to comply if they try to deport criminal illegal aliens under federal law, which is, by the way, legal. Which is what Biden, and if Biden had done that when he got in, Trump wouldn't be president again. Kamala Harris would be president, or Biden himself would be reelected. If the Democrats had just done what they pretend they're all about, they would still be in power. If they really believed that no one is above the law, not even Donald Trump, they wouldn't then in the next breath say, except 50 million illegal aliens. So no one's above the law, but including Donald Trump. No one's above the law, not even Donald Trump, except 50 million illegal aliens. And when the average person hears these lies over and over, and all these inconsistencies and all this hypocrisy over and over and over and over and over, after a couple of election cycles, they finally say, enough is enough. Now you want me to blow your mind? You want me to show you how bad the state of the Democrat Party is in Massachusetts right now? Pull up these Lawrence numbers. This is absolutely friggin' stunning. When I saw these numbers, I actually called someone at City Hall who was there live while they were releasing numbers and asked them to go back and check it again. There's absolutely no way this can be true. It can't be. There's literally no way these numbers are real, and yet these numbers are real. Now, before I even go into this, let me give you a little tutorial on Lawrence. Lawrence, Massachusetts has about 90,000 people. I'm counting the illegals, so don't tell me about census numbers. Census numbers don't mean shit. There's about 90,000 people that live in the city of Lawrence. The vast majority of those people are Dominican. And the vast majority of those Dominicans are American citizens. True. The next demographic is Puerto Ricans. The next demographic is white. The next demographic after that, I believe, is El Salvadorian. There are 63 countries, I think, at my last count, represented in the city of Lawrence. And in the city of Lawrence, when Jameson Thomasek ran for Senate against Barry Feingold, lost 9-1. When Alex Visboli ran against Barry Feingold, lost 9-1. Elizabeth Warren, in her last election, won 9-1. 7-1 to 9-1 is the average vote in Lawrence when you're talking about a Democrat versus a Republican. That's the background. Maura Healey comes to Lawrence every single year, the day before an election, to make sure all those Democrats come out because it floods the numbers for the rest of the state. And yet on Tuesday, Harris gets 4,805 votes. Trump gets 3,373 votes. And even with my Lawrence High School math, that's about 1,500 votes. But in 2020, Biden had 16,800. I typed it wrong. It should be 854. I have 8554. But it should be 16,854 to Trump's 5,776. So you can look at that and say, well, Trump got fewer votes. But it was a higher turnout. And in the higher turnout, the percentage of Biden to Trump votes is 3-1, almost 4-1. Wasn't 3-1 on Tuesday. Where were the 16,000 people? Where was the 12,000 people, the difference between Harris and Biden? Where were the 12,000 people in Lawrence, the 12,000 Dominican voters? Where were they to come out to save democracy? Where were they? You know where they were? They stayed home. And you know why they stayed home? I called them and asked them. I called my friend Domingo Melendez. I called all my Latino friends, and I won't name them by name. And the vast majority of them said, I either didn't vote or I didn't vote for Harris. I voted for Trump, or I left it blank and voted in other races because we're sick and tired of the Democrat Party taking us for granted. They come into Lawrence every time at election time. They beg us for our votes. We vote for them en masse. They throw us a few crumbs after the election's over to make it look good, and we don't see them again until the next election, and we're tired of it. We're tired of them telling us that we have to degender our culture. And instead of calling ourselves Latinos or Latinas, calling ourselves Latinx. They're tired of the slap in the face. By the way, most Dominicans in Lawrence, pro-life. The vast majority, I would say, no exaggeration, 80% of the Dominican voters in Lawrence are pro-life. Pro-life. Absolutely pro-life, too. I'm not saying like pro-life making exceptions for rape and incest. They're pro-life. They're as pro-life as I am. And they're not for all the transgender nonsense. And they're not for the LBGTQIA /division sign. They're not for any of that stuff. They come from a culture that's kind of a common sense culture. Men and women have defined roles. Their gender and their culture are gender specific. And they are tired of white liberals coming into Lawrence like Maura Healey and Elizabeth Warren telling them how they should change their culture to make the white liberals feel better about themselves. And I heard it over and over and over again on election night. I mean, I called a lot of my friends. I was in the office all night. And I called a lot of my friends. There were times when I had 2 phone lines going. And they were outraged. They were outraged. I bring all this up because if you look at the national trend and you just look at the trend here locally, I always say Lawrence and the Merrimack Valley is a good microcosm for the rest of the country. What you're starting to see is the blue wave of disinformation is starting to fall apart. They came out and they told you that the border was secure while we were watching video of millions of illegal aliens streaming across the border. They told you that Joe Biden was as sharp and mentally sharp as a brain surgeon. In fact, behind the scenes, he was committing brain surgery while he was juggling chainsaws and solving world peace. And we all saw, while they were saying that, Joe Biden shaking the hands of imaginary people that weren't there during press conferences at a microphone. They told us the economy was good, that the economy was booming, while you were going to the grocery store spending twice as much this year as you were 4 years ago. And over and over and over and over, they lied and they lied. And they didn't just lie. They told obvious lies. It reminded me of going back to like the Ferguson riots when the guy's standing in front of a Wendy's, the guy's getting shot behind him, the Wendy's is on fire, and he's calling it a mostly peaceful protest. Like while we're watching what's not a peaceful protest, they still with a straight face stood there and looked us in the eye and told us it was a fucking peaceful protest. And you can do that for a while and the population will put up with it. A lot of people, they hear the lie and they just don't want to fight, so they don't say anything. Most people are good people that don't like conflict. So they let it go, and they let it go. And when they hear it, when they're out with their friends, they don't want to get involved because why have a fight? But after a while, you can't take a kid and hit him in the face 100 times and say, why are you hitting yourself? And that's what they did to us every day. Every day during this election, they slapped us in the face and said, why are you hitting yourself? No one's above the law, not even Donald Trump, except 50 million illegal aliens. The economy's great. And every day you'd go on Facebook and see, oh my God, CVS is closing 35 stores. Oh my God, TGI Fridays is closing 150 stores. Oh my God, right down the line every day. Another toy chain going out, another restaurant chain going out. And every time I would post it on my Facebook page, some Democrat who had to show for their party would get on and say, yeah, but Tom, that has nothing to do with Democrat policies. Stores closed during Republicans, you know. Tom? Come on, Tom. Can you prove that has to do with Democrat policies? Yeah, we can prove that. We can prove that 100%. Because in places like California, you want to know the lies that were going on over there. In California, they decriminalized crimes, and they told you crimes were going down. They actually passed a law that you could steal up to $1,000 at a store. You could shoplift up to $1,000 at a store, and you weren't going to get arrested. And then they came out and said, stealing is down. Stealing's not down. People just stopped calling the cops because the cops couldn't do anything because you decriminalized stealing. But that didn't mean stealing was down. Reports of stealing was down. And that's how the scam in California worked, and they were trying to do that all over the country. In fact, Joe Biden was literally flying, and still is, flying people in from El Salvador and South America giving them, with his presidential authority, giving them temporary citizenship status so you can't call them illegal. We learned that in Methuen. Again, we go to the local level just to prove everything wrong. Neil Perry got the nerve to get up at a city council meeting one day and say, I want to correct the record. And he was speaking directly to me because I had that day said on this podcast that there were illegal aliens being housed in Methuen. So Neil Perry gets up at a city council meeting that night and says, that's a total lie. It's a lie. They're not illegal. They're legal. So I felt like shit. I went, oh my God, did I get that wrong? Did I mislead my viewers? Even by mistake, that's not a good thing. So I started looking into it. Come to find out they were illegal aliens. They were illegal aliens that were given temporary status, but they were still illegal aliens. And this is the lies that the media and the Democrat Party, which owns the media, told you day after day after day. And now I'm going to tell you, we got about 10 minutes left, hon? Now I'm going to tell you why the Democrats really lost. Because make no mistake about it, Donald Trump did a good job running his campaign. But by all right, he probably shouldn't have won it. By all right, he probably shouldn't have won it, given all the propaganda that was talked about with this guy for the last 4 years. But there's a couple of things that happened that made it 100% sure now, looking back with hindsight, that Kamala Harris never had a shot. And the first one was, well, let me go back a little bit more. The beginning of the end for the Democrat Party happened when Roe v. Wade was overturned. During Trump's last administration, that was actually the beginning of the end of the current Democrat Party and their narratives. Because Elizabeth Warren and the Democrats told you for decades, if you just give us more money, we'll protect Roe v. Wade. If you just make more donations, if you just hold the sign one more election, we will protect Roe v. Wade. We will protect your national right to an abortion. They told you that over and over and over and over. And I had a family member, I won't say which one of my daughters it was, but I have a family member that called me the day Roe v. Wade got overturned. And she said, Dad, I can't believe you were right. You said if Trump got in, he'd overturn Roe v. Wade. And you're not going to believe that within 5 minutes, I got a text message from a Democrat that I voted for in the last election saying, now I need your money more than ever so we can protect abortion at the state level. She was furious that Roe v. Wade, the body of Roe v. Wade wasn't even cold yet. After they told you year after year after year that the Democrats would protect Roe v. Wade if you just gave them more money. And then the minute it was gone, it was, okay, give us money, we'll protect it at the state level. And that was the very beginning of the Democrats losing their power in this country. That was when they started skidding out of control. I'll tell you where they ended up losing everything. Was the day that Kamala Harris called Donald Trump Hitler. Even people who don't like Donald Trump, if you're a sane person with brain cells that talk to each other in your head, even a sane person knows that Donald Trump does not want to put Jews in concentration camps and commit medical experiments on them without anesthesia. That's what Hitler did. Commit mass executions on main streets everywhere in America. That was the narrative that Kamala Harris and the Democrat Party painted for you every day. They called his supporters Nazis and fascists, and they called Donald Trump Adolf Hitler. And the second they did that, if you go back and you track where the country was before that and since then, you will see that those people in the middle, those people who are independent voters, those people who are maybe they're registered Democrat or Republican, but they're flip voters, people that voted for Obama and then voted for Trump and then voted for Biden. Those voters that bounce back and forth based on their common sense, based on the issues of the day, those people fled the Democrat Party in droves the minute the nominee for the Democrat Party said, my opponent is Hitler. What was scary about that, though, as a Jew, by the way, what was scary about that, though, was how many non-Jewish Democrats were all over the country repeating that lie as if it was true and attacking people who denied it. Now, most people don't know that I'm Jewish. I converted to Judaism 28 years ago. Most people don't know that. I don't wear it on my sleeve. I don't talk about it all the time. So you would be really, really surprised to see how many people came on my page calling me a Nazi, calling me a white supremacist. Because I continued to say Donald Trump is not a Nazi. I never even said I was voting for him. In fact, just to give you another snapshot as to why the Democrats lost on Election Day, for those of you who are Democrats taking notes that care, that actually want to fix the problem, I said on this show I'm not voting for Donald Trump, I'm voting for RFK. I walked into the polling booth, I got my pen ready, I was excited not to vote for Donald Trump. I was excited not to vote for him. I'm not even mad about insurrection, I'm not mad about any hateful things that he says. I'm still pissed off about what he did to Jeff Sessions. And that was like in his first year as president. And I couldn't reward it. And I said, you know what? I'm voting for RFK. I know he can't win. I know he's supporting Trump. I'm voting for RFK. It's my protest vote. I'm in Massachusetts. It doesn't matter anyway. I walked in. I looked at my ballot. RFK wasn't on the ballot. So I went over to one of my Democrat friends and I said, hey, what happened to RFK? How come he's not on the ballot? And my Democrat friend said to me in the polling booth at North Andover High School, said to me, RFK's not on the ballot because the Democrat Party worked very hard to stop him from getting the signatures required and keep him off the ballot. I said, son of a bitch. Here I am. I want to vote against Donald Trump. Just on principle, I just want to vote against him. Because of what he did to Jeff Sessions, I'm still really mad about it. We'll talk. I can do a whole show on that. And even though I like all of his policies and I defend him when I think he's right, which he's mostly, I think, right, I still wanted to vote for RFK. And the Democrats went out of their way to keep him from being on the ballot. I thought they were here to save democracy. I thought the Democrats were saving democracy. So now you've taken away my option to vote against Donald Trump. So you know what I did? I went back to the polling booth and I voted for Donald Trump. And I didn't want to vote for Donald Trump, even though I agree with him on almost everything. And this is where the Democrat Party cuts off their nose to spite their face. You had Kamala Harris out there saying to Jewish voters, I stand with Israel, and then saying to Arab voters, we need a two-state solution. Well, you can't be both. You can't say to Israel, I stand with you, and then go to the people trying to exterminate Jews, the Palestinians and Hamas, and say, I'm going to give you a nation state with your own army right on the border of Israel. You can't be both. And yet there she was doing it, thinking the Jews weren't going to know she was saying what she was saying to the Palestinians and the Arabs were going to be far too stupid to know what she was saying to the Jews, and they both did. And the numbers reflect it. The Democrats lost among white women, which is, by the way, their biggest base. They lost among black men. They certainly lost against Latinos, 40% increase. Donald Trump got a 40% increase in Latino support. Wow, not bad for Hitler, huh? And by the way, if Donald Trump really is Hitler, if they really believed what they've been saying for the last year of this campaign, why aren't they all now fleeing the country? You would think Kamala Harris would have had no press conference, got on a plane, and went to Canada. You would think half of Hollywood would be in Europe by now, hiding from the evil man who's going to put them in a concentration camp and commit medical experiments on them without anesthesia. But the fact that none of them are doing that shows you how full of shit they were from the beginning. Because the fact is, Donald Trump, for all of his faults, and they are many, we will talk about them over the next 4 years, he's not Hitler. He's not a fascist. In fact, most people don't even know what a fascist is. You know how many people came on my Facebook page and said Donald Trump's a fascist? And then I asked them what a fascist was, and you could tell that they went and Googled it and copied and pasted to make it sound like they knew what they were talking about when they said it, but they didn't. They were just repeating talking points. The American people want American tax dollars to go to Americans first. That's not a conspiracy. It's not hate. It's not fascism. It's not communism. It's not racism. It's not homophobia. It's not Arab bashing. It's self-preservation. And what the American people saw over the last 4 years of Joe Biden, who was never really in control, we don't know who was running the country, but it wasn't Joe Biden. You guys know what day it is. But what we saw was the people, the elites in Washington, D.C., taking American tax money and sending it to Ukraine to defend their borders, while our borders here at home were wide open. And when our citizens said, hey, what about us? When black Americans in Roxbury said, why are you taking our youth center and giving it to illegal aliens who don't belong here? We were told we were racist. We were told we were bad people. And the American public was just sick of it. We were sick and tired of the elites in Washington telling us that it was raining while they were pissing on our head. We were tired of the lies. I forget, where do we stop? I don't know what number we stop at. Oh, now. All right, okay, very good.
Hey, that's okay.
I got another 40 minutes in me, believe me. And let me say this going forward, because we have to end the show. Unfortunately, we have to end the show.
I'm sorry.
It's all good, honey. Just because the Republicans ran the table today, do not delude yourself if you're a conservative or a Republican. If you voted for Trump or you voted Republican, do not delude yourself into thinking this is going to be smooth going. It's not. Not only are the Democrats in power going to double down to try and regain their power, but never underestimate the power of Republicans to fuck things up. When Donald Trump got elected the first time, the Republicans controlled the House and the Senate. We couldn't get a wall built. We couldn't get tax breaks. We couldn't do away with the Department of Education. We couldn't do any of the things that Donald Trump ran on because the Republicans stood in his way. Because they were more concerned about not being called a racist on CNN than they were doing what the voters told them to do. And do not underestimate, I'm telling you right now, do not underestimate the power of the Republican Party to screw this up over the next 2 years. We'll see, but I've seen it time and time again. The problem with the Democrat Party is that they always go too far. They achieve power, and they go way too far with all the transgender bullshit and taxing the rich and socialism and Obamacare. The problem with the Republicans is the opposite. They get in and they never go far enough. They get in promising tax cuts that they only give you partially. They tell you that they cut spending, but they didn't cut spending. They cut the increase in growth of spending. In other words, if we were increasing our spending 40% every year, well, the next year they increase spending by 20%, but they still increase spending. So the problem between the two parties is the opposite. The Democrats always go too far, and Republicans never go far enough. And that's why Republicans, when they achieve power, it's always fleeting. It's always for like 2 years, and then they lose. Because they never do what they promise. I'll tell you why I left the Republican Party, and you guys can get me back. But I'm going to tell you why I left again. I've said it before, and I'm going to close with this. I left the Republican Party. Well, there's a lot of reasons, but what pushed me over the edge was the day that the United States Senate was voting on a third COVID relief package for American citizens, $1,200. They'd given us two. They were debating on the third, and Mitch McConnell got up at the podium at the Senate and said, it's just too expensive. We can't be borrowing more money from China. It's not fiscally prudent. We are the party of fiscal responsibility, and we have to start acting like it. And I said, you know what? I don't agree with him. I don't agree with him. He should give us the money. The government shut us down. The government should pay us for shutting us down. But I understand where he's coming from. He's a fiscal conservative. He really is worried about spending American money and not borrowing too much money and destroying our economy by doing so. And then in the next fucking breath, after that failed and they said no to the American people for $1,200 in COVID relief, the Republicans made a motion to send like $3 trillion to Jordan and Egypt and Brazil and the Congo and South America. All over the world, we were spending money on foreign aid, trillions of dollars. And it passed unanimously. And you know who made the motion? Mitch McConnell. So if you're going to get in and you're going to do that again, you're never going to get me back. Maybe you don't want me back. That's fine, too. I know the Democrats certainly don't want me. But if you've learned anything from Tuesday, you should know this. Trump won, yes, but the Democrats blew it. Until the time Kamala Harris called him Hitler, she had it won. And when they went too far, they blew it. Now the Republicans have won. If they don't go far enough, they're going to blow it. And I will leave you with that. You can roll up Mel and thank our sponsors. Thank you, Chrissy, for letting me go a little over, even though I promised today that I wouldn't.
That's okay.
But it's good, though, that
didn't
you do it that
promise,
way
you
so I can
did.
see how over I am.
There you go.
Right?
All right.
I want to thank our sponsors, A&J Goodwin Plumbing, Peralt Chiropractic, and Methuen Stadium Chiropractic in Lawrence, W3ON Enterprise Bank, Chris's Barbershop, where I'm going right after here to get my hair cut, Prime Insurance, the Doug Mercurio Law Office, Better Burger Bar and Harrison's Roast Beef, and I hope Dean's feeling better. I know he hasn't been feeling well. Pleasant Valley Landscaping Contractors, AFC Urgent Care, which I think I missed at the beginning of the show. Zaka's story will be in the next edition of the Valley Patriot. Clear Path for Veterans New England, Tomo and Shaken Seafood, the Bonfire Wellness Center of North Andover, EIS Investigation and Gun Training, Marsan and Son Construction. Do we have a graphic for them on the front, Marsan and Son? If we don't, we
Yeah,
need,
I think
oh, we
so.
do?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
If we
I
don't, we need
believe
to
we
make
do.
one.
Yeah, we should.
For some reason, it's just not hitting my brain. But I've been up for 3 days. Century 21, the McLennan Real Estate, the Zanny Pesh Law Office, and a free shout out to JG's Ice Cream. Also, Salvatore's Restaurant for helping the homeless. Thank you guys.
Good job, Salvatore.
Do you have something to promote for tonight, real quick?
Music Bingo, Sadie's Bar and Grill, Salem, New Hampshire, 6:30.
Sounds like Melvin Taylor says you got to go home, so go home already.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.